The story revolves around Irene, a single mother living in poverty. Her father disappeared when she was a child, so now Irene lives with her elderly mother and older brother. However, they constantly scold her and don't treat her as part of the family. Irene's husband left her when she gave birth to their son Jody, so she has to take care of everything on her own. In addition to daily living expenses, Irene also has to bear the debt caused by her gambling-addicted brother. Because the debt is too large to repay, debt collectors come pounding on their door every day. Irene, not wanting to leave her son at home, decides to take the boy with her to her workplace, a snack factory in town. While she works, Jody keeps urging her to come play with him, but Irene, being too busy, tells him to wait outside in the garden. However, as soon as the boy leaves, a loud scream rings out. Startled, Irene runs over and is horrified to find that Jody has fallen into a vat of hot oil, causing severe burns to his body. Although he is rushed to the hospital, Irene becomes worried when she sees the cost of treatment. She has no idea how she will come up with such a large amount of money. Her brother returns home after gambling and doesn't even ask about his injured nephew. Instead, he tries to borrow more money to continue gambling. Angry, Irene confronts him and curses at him, only to be slapped hard across the face. Suddenly, the house phones all begin to ring one after another. Irene answers and hears the moaning voice of a man, a voice that sounds just like her missing father. Before she can process what's happening, there is a knock at the door. Irene opens it and finds her distant relative, Uncle Darmono. At the door, he visits under the pretext of offering her a new job with a good salary, claiming it will help her pay off the family's debt. After speaking, Uncle Darmono pulls out a wad of advance cash. Irene hesitates, but her mother quickly grabs the money, telling her daughter not to worry and to go take the job. The money will be used for her son's surgery. Seeing that her mother and brother only care about money, Irene feels deeply angry, but has no choice. This is the only way she can save her son. Now the next day, Uncle Darmono drives Irene to her new workplace, which is located in a remote forest. There lies a private property that houses a textile factory. Uncle Darmono introduces Irene to the factory's owners. They are very friendly and give her a tour of the facility. Irene notices that all the mirrors inside the factory are mysteriously covered. The owner then reveals that Irene's father and uncle were once close friends of his and had helped a lot in building the factory. However, after her father's mysterious disappearance, they have not seen him since. Seeing that Irene is still confused, the owner reassures her that the job is simple but requires concentration, so workers are not allowed to use personal phones. Although worried about her son in the hospital, Irene has no choice but to surrender her phone. She is then directed to the dormitory located behind the factory. At this place, workers are not allowed to leave the dormitory after 7 p.m. If caught wandering, they will be severely punished. Irene enters her assigned room and finds a girl crying. As soon as the girl sees Irene, she walks out without saying a word. Besides the strange girl, another person is asleep on the opposite bed. Irene doesn't think much of it and heads to the bathroom. It's dark outside, and no one is around the dorm. As soon as she enters the bathroom, she sees bubbles rising from the water tank. From the water, her son Jody appears and moans, calling out to his mother. Terrified, Irene realizes it's just a hallucination and runs back to her room in fear. She doesn't know that around the dormitory, numerous spirits are silently standing. The next morning, Irene finally talks to her roommate and learns her name is Tree. Irene asks about the other girl who slept on the opposite bed the night before, but Tree looks at her with a puzzled expression. Irene turns to look at the bed and sees it covered in dust, as if no one has used it for a long time. On her first day of work at the factory, Irene feels a bit overwhelmed. Luckily, Tree comes to help and guides her through the tasks. Later, the factory owner gathers all workers to announce an important update. The factory has opened a new branch in the city, and starting today, they will select excellent workers to be transferred there with double the salary. Everyone is excited and determined to secure a spot. Since Irene is new, she is still slow and struggles to organize her things by the end of the day. She is the last person to leave the factory. Just as she's about to go, the warehouse door behind her suddenly opens on its own. Curious, Irene starts to walk in, but a worker suddenly appears. He advises her not to go in and introduces himself as a Wong. Before Irene can ask more, he quickly walks away. That night, Irene returns to the dormitory but finds no one there. She goes to the water dispenser to get a drink but is shocked to see the water turn red like blood. Inside the tank is a human head, repeating the words, Look into the mirror. Startled, Irene drops the glass to the floor, only to realize she is now back inside the factory. Everything she saw earlier was just an illusion. After work, the factory owner personally came to inspect everyone's products. A pregnant worker, due to a small mistake, was harshly scolded and fired by the owner despite her crying and begging non-stop. While the owner was distracted, Irene secretly took a portion of her own finished products and placed them in her friend Tree's basket. Thanks to that, Tree ended up with the highest production count of the day. After their shift ended, Tree approached and asked why Irene helped her. Irene explained that she didn't want to be selected to go to the city because she still had a young son at home with no one to care for him. Instead, she wanted to help Tree get the opportunity to leave this place. From that day on, at the end of each shift, Irene would secretly give a portion of her products to Tree to help her stay at the top of the ranking. Tree was very grateful and believed she was about to return to the city where her younger brother was waiting for her. However, competition for the transfer slots was getting extremely fierce, and Tree began to worry she might not get selected. Feeling sorry for her friend, Irene couldn't sleep that night. Suddenly, she came up with a plan. She snuck into the factory alone at midnight to make extra products. While she was working quietly, a few drops of red liquid dripped down from the ceiling. Before she could understand what was happening, a severed head suddenly fell in front of her, its mouth muttering the same phrase, "Look into the mirror." Frightened, Irene screamed, alerting the security guard outside. Panicking, she quickly tried to hide. While fumbling around, Irene accidentally entered the factory owner's office and discovered an old photo of her father with Uncle Darmono from years ago. She then searched through the cabinet, intending to retrieve her phone and call home to check on her son. But suddenly, she heard someone crying. Turning around, she saw it was the pregnant worker who had been fired days earlier. At that moment, the woman's face looked terrifying. She slowly approached and exposed her bloodied stomach in front of Irene. Shocked, Irene suddenly woke up, realizing it had only been a nightmare, but as she pulled off her blanket, she was horrified to find dozens of leeches crawling all over her body. Tree, seeing the situation, quickly poured salt over Irene to help her get rid of the leeches. Before Irene could understand what was going on, voices were heard outside the dorm. Tree stepped out and saw many workers standing at the door, pointing at the ceiling, where dozens of leeches were swarming around the room. One suddenly fell on her face, causing her to scream in terror. Others rushed in to help and managed to pull it off. After the incident, Tree angrily scolded Irene, accusing her of being cursed. Though confused and frightened, Irene still had to go to work as usual. That day, the factory owners announced the results of the competition. After some deliberation, they decided that Tree had the highest productivity and would be transferred to work at the new city branch. The factory owner then called Irene up in front of everyone and gave her a reward for her hard work. He stepped closer and whispered in her ear that she'd better follow the rules if she wanted to continue working there. Hearing this, Irene was stunned, realizing that the factory staff already knew what she had done. During a break, while standing outside for fresh air, Irene saw the female owner taking Tree somewhere. That evening, back at the dorm, Irene noticed something odd about Tree. No matter what she asked, Tree didn't respond. Instead, she kept putting her hand in her mouth, as if trying to pull something out. When she left, Irene went to check and was shocked to find it was a tooth. Worried, Irene followed Tree to the bathroom. Looking through the peephole, she saw the room completely drenched in red, like blood. As she was trying to peek around, Tree suddenly appeared, her eyes completely white and terrifying. She then flung the door open and walked away, leaving Irene frozen in shock. Feeling something was terribly wrong, Irene decided to secretly follow her. She saw Tree heading toward the factory. But just then, Awang appeared and pulled Irene into the shadows. It turns out that not only Irene, but Awang too knew the factory was hiding a dark secret. Every month, the owners would find a reason to send a few workers away from the factory. Strangely, once they left, they were never heard from again. At that moment, Irene saw the owners and their henchmen taking Tree into the nearby forest. Without hesitation, she and Awang followed, but quickly lost their trail. Awang admitted he had tried many times to escape this place but never found a way out. As they were still unsure what to do next, Irene suddenly saw the ghost of her father standing in front of her, pointing in a direction as if guiding her. She immediately followed his lead and saw the owners and their henchmen performing an ancient ritual. They placed Tree in the center of the altar and chanted strange incantations. Strangely, Tree appeared to be possessed, slowly levitating into the air. The female owner stepped forward and slashed her neck, causing Tree to bleed to death. From afar, Irene was horrified by the scene. The owner then took Tree's blood and smeared it on a mirror at the altar. Their followers rushed forward to touch the bloodied mirror, as if it were a divine reward. In his fear, Hutang accidentally made a noise, alerting the factory owner. She immediately ordered the others to chase them. The two fled into the forest, but Hutang was unfortunately captured. Alone, Irene ran for her life into the woods. She tripped over a branch and fell, then entered a hallucination. In it, her entire family was seated at the dinner table. Each wore a disturbing smile and told her she was no longer part of the family. Her mother slowly approached her, face now terrifying, and told her she should end her life as part of the ritual. Angrily, Irene grabbed a stick and stabbed it into her mother's neck. She quickly returned to reality, only to discover the person she had just stabbed turned out to be the female factory owner. The wound was too severe, causing her to slowly die. Terrified, Irene ran back to the factory. Suddenly, Tree appeared, covered in blood. Irene rushed over to try to help, but the injuries were too severe, and Tree quickly passed away. While Irene was still in shock, the factory owner attacked her from behind, knocking her unconscious. When she regained consciousness, she found herself lying in his office. The man pretended that everything was normal, lying that Tree had already been sent back to the city and claiming that everything Irene saw was just her imagination. However, seeing the blood on his hands, Irene realized the truth. She shoved him against the wall, accidentally pulling off the cloth covering the mirror. The man, now furious, lunged at her, but Irene grabbed a nearby pair of scissors and stabbed him in the eye, causing immense pain. At that moment, the lights in the room began to flicker. The man became frightened, begging her to cover the mirror again, otherwise, what's inside would come out and kill everyone. But just as he finished speaking, hands reached out from within the mirror, grabbed him, and dragged him away. Panicked, Irene tried to escape, but as soon as she got outside, she was spotted by the owner's henchmen. She ran into the factory and hid inside the storage room. Looking around, Irene was shocked to see dozens of ritual items used for sacrificial ceremonies. She then discovered that Hutang had also been captured and brought here. Together, they ventured deeper into the building to find a way out. They accidentally stumbled into a room resembling a prison. Inside were the corpses of many factory workers and the owner's servants. Irene realized they had all been victims, sacrificed in that horrific ritual. Suddenly, Hutang started laughing loudly. He walked over, turned on some music, and began dancing in a bizarre, disturbing manner. Irene sensed something was wrong. She pulled off the cloth covering a wall mirror and saw that Hutang's reflection was actually a demon. He had already been possessed. The demon lunged at Irene, knocking her to the floor. This triggered another hallucination. She saw her father lying in front of her, and the memories from 25 years ago came flooding back. Back then, to make the factory prosperous and wealthy, the owners and Irene's uncle performed a demonic ritual to summon a dark entity. Her father, upon learning of it, rushed to stop them, only to be devastated to find that his wife was also involved. She had brought young Irene as a sacrifice, hoping to escape poverty. When he tried to stop her, she slashed his neck, killing him instantly. The entire group then staged his death as a mysterious disappearance. Irene had been offered as a sacrifice to the demon. She would grow up and return to the factory at the right time, to become its next meal. Shocked, Irene realized everything had been orchestrated by her mother and uncle. The demon bound Irene to a pole, preparing to consume her. Desperate, Irene struggled, and somehow broke free. She ran into another room filled with the hanging bodies of past sacrificial victims. Suddenly, she heard a sound coming from a nearby mirror. Opening it, she saw the factory owner trapped inside along with the spirits of the sacrificed workers. The demon appeared again and slowly approached. At that moment, Irene realized how to defeat it. She stabbed the mirror, instantly causing the demon to cry out in pain. In rage, it pushed her into another dimension. The forest altar. There, the demon, still in Hutang's body, began strangling her. But Irene fought back and pushed him to the ground, seizing the chance to attack. However, the demon transformed into her son Jody, causing Irene to freeze in hesitation. Moments later, the boy's face twisted into something horrific and resumed tormenting her psychologically. Irene realized it was all an illusion, even her own body, so she took the scissors and stabbed herself. Surprisingly, each wound she inflicted also hurt the demon in the same place. Suddenly, the mirror at the altar exploded, and the illusion collapsed. At that moment, the spirit of her father appeared, hugged her gently, and comforted her. Irene cried and apologized to him before he vanished into the void. When the vision cleared, only the cold corpses of Tri and Dawang remained. After the incident, Irene returned home alone. She sat silently in front of her mother, who was now gravely ill from the failed ritual. With a cold tone, Irene exposed all of her mother's crimes. She then pulled away the cloth covering a mirror behind her. Upon seeing it, the mother panicked. Her heart rate skyrocketed, and she died instantly. In the final scene, Irene is reunited with her son. Though his face was badly burned, he survived and was no longer in danger. As for Uncle Darmono, he continued searching for poor people in need of high-paying jobs to lure them to the factory and become the next sacrifice in the demonic ritual. The film ends here. What are your thoughts after watching it? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss upcoming thrilling films. Thank you and goodbye.